Hi there, my name is Kevin Wallace. I'm the program director and morning show host here at Air 1061. And we are in conversation with all the 5 candidates running for the NLA position in the provincial election here in 2015. The election, of course, coming up on May 5th. And we're joined now with Jeff Willerton. You're running as an independent. And just before we get into the 3 key topics, healthcare, education, and the budget, and the current tax situation, let's allow the audience to get to know you a little bit. Let's talk about yourself, and then you can just segue right into the platform that you're standing on.
Well, I'm 50 years old. I've been passionate about politics for half my life, since the summer of 1990.
Wow.
This is my 10th kick at the can. I've always been passionate about promoting a conservative alternative to the Liberals, to what is the very Liberal government that we endure in Edmonton.
You're referring to the Jim Prentice
I'm
PC
referring
government?
to the PC government, and they've been Liberal since 1971. As I like to point out, when Peter Lougheed left office, the government of Alberta was spending $18 inflation-adjusted dollars for every dollar it was spending the day he took office. Don Getty epitomized irresponsibility in the name of diversification. Ralph Klein, his cutbacks were necessary and long overdue, but they were misdirected and led to no long-term savings in any department, and it's gone downhill fast since then. Jim Prentice is no different. After the budget, we can see that Jim Prentice is no different from his tax and spend Liberal predecessors.
Okay.
So we need some conservative governance in this province.
And you would be
And I've been
bringing
fighting for that for forever. You know, I ran for the Socrats back in the 90s, when that was where disaffected conservatives went. I ran for the Alberta Party when it was still a conservative entity in 2004, before it was taken over by some Green Party, what I call Green Party leftovers in 2009.
Okay.
You know, I was a founding member of the Wild Rose in 2007, of the joint party in 2008, the Wild Rose Alliance. I was concerned about I was afraid that Danielle Smith would be very detrimental to the party in 2010, and ran against her for the leadership. And my misgivings have come to fruition. In fact, it turned out worse than I could have possibly imagined. You know, I was concerned about Rob Anderson for various reasons in 2012, ran against him as an independent. We're still at it.
Okay.
The province continues to go downhill. They continue to try and downhill to the left. We're going downhill, and we continue to drift to the left. Somebody has to try and put the brakes on. That's why I'm on the ballot.
As an independent.
As an independent. And I'm on the ballot as an independent because the Reform Party of Alberta isn't registered yet. And it's not registered yet because of the early election call. And so I'm kind of hooking my wagon. I'm not hooking my wagon to the Tories because they're the problem. I'm not hooking to the Wild Rose because they won't have me because I'm a social conservative, but primarily because I'm not going to hook my wagon to their train, because they have become just like everybody else in the province. At the end of the day.
Are you referring to the Reform days when Preston Manning was leading?
No, there is a Reform Party of Alberta in the works, and it's headed by Randy Thorstenson in Red Deer. And again, it's not registered. We couldn't complete the registration process in time for the election call, in part because of the early election call. If it had been next year when it was legally supposed to be, I think it would have been a done deal.
Okay. Thank you for your thoughts. Let's jump right into healthcare. Let's specifically talk about the urgent healthcare center that we have here in Airdrie, and the promise of it turning into a 24-hour healthcare center, as well as healthcare right across the province.
Okay, healthcare generally, we spend far too much money on administration. According to a study by the CHA, 51% of our healthcare budget is consumed by administration. That's not all bureaucrats, but a lot of it is bureaucrats, senior civil servants, and managers of managers of managers. Far too much of that going on. In Airdrie, that has to be addressed. So we need a downsizing of the bureaucracy. And the downsizing has to start at the top with the MLAs themselves. We have too many in the province. It's another issue. But in Airdrie, 24-hour healthcare is long overdue. It should have been here 20 years ago. I think it's inevitable. And I think that Peter Brown saying his priority is to get some funding. His first priority for Airdronians, I should say, is to get funding from the government. Well, we need funding, but our first priority is not to get crumbs from the table of a bad government, it's to get better government.
Okay. Let's jump into education. And the education process in Manitoba, some promises have been made for new schools. As you know, there's lots of young families here concerned about getting their kids.
Did you say Manitoba?
I did. I think I did.
You did.
You're right. I meant Alberta, of
Okay.
course. I lived in Manitoba for many years since
So did
that's
I.
where that
So
came
did
from.
I.
And I
Yes.
was watching the Winnipeg Jets the other night, so
There you go.
fell
So
right
was I.
back in. Let's talk about the education system here in Airdrie, Alberta, and what that means, and the concerns that a lot of people have here about getting their kids in proper schools, not just in portables, and the long-term development of opportunities for kids.
We need to get our kids into schools, obviously physical schools, and they need to be staffed. The government has cut back, not so much cut back education, but held the line on education in a growing economy, a growing market, which is in effect a cutback on the student, and they pass the buck on to the healthcare boards to find out where to make cuts. Well, what they're doing is passing those costs to the classroom at the end of the day, instead of, again, dealing with the problem, and that's the bureaucracy. Ralph didn't deal with it in the mid-90s, unfortunately. Jim's not dealing with it now.
What would you do if you could change things?
Build more schools and staff them properly, of course. We have budgetary concerns naturally, but those can be addressed by dealing with the expenditures, not by raising taxes.
Okay, let's jump into the budget then, and how would you change the budget that seems to be fairly heavy with some new taxes?
Queen Elizabeth I inherited a bankrupt England from her, this is kind of off the wall, but Queen Elizabeth I inherited a bankrupt England from her father, King Henry VIII. Instead of increasing revenues to match the needs of government, she downsized government to match, to meet existing revenues. That's what needs to happen. That's not what Jim has done. He's raising taxes all over the place. We're getting hit 50 ways from Sunday. The left wants to increase corporate taxes. Well, the mom and pop on the corner, that's a corporation. The guy building widgets over in the industrial park, that's a corporation. They're paying for it. They're paying for all these tax increases on the personal side. The left wants to force them to pay it at work too. They don't think they're paying enough yet. Well, that's going to lead to layoffs and so on and so forth. So, the one thing the budget got right was not increasing corporate taxes. It got a lot wrong as well.
If you were able to make some changes, if you actually were in the government, how would you work on changing under the current economic situation?
I would, to begin with, I would do what Ralph didn't do in the 90s, bring in an efficiency organization, or a number of them, to look over the different departments to determine where cuts could be made effectively and efficiently without adversely influencing the delivery of services. Case in point, Air Canada in the 70s brought in an efficiency organization. They looked over the organization and recommended 4,000 cuts, 95% of which were in management. They carried out those cuts, and not a ripple was felt by the flying public. They brought the same organization back to recommend more cuts. This time the cuts came on the service end. Those cuts were carried out, and the flying public was thrown into confusion. The airports were in a state of confusion. They brought those people back that they just let go, and let go of the efficiency organization. Okay? But the moral of the story is the fat collects in management. Okay? The cutbacks in the mid-90s were wrong in that they went after the little people instead of the
Understand.
managers. And
So you are going to be part of the all candidates debate / forum coming up on Wednesday, April 29th.
Yes.
That's going to be at the Burt Church Theatre at 7 o'clock on Wednesday, April 29th, taking place at 7 o'clock. Airdrie Chamber of Commerce putting it on. They always do a wonderful job. So thank you very much for your time, and best of luck.
Good to meet you.